Okay, so this Raja Vidya, Raja means king. As you know, the king is the most important in any kingdom. Also, we see, supposing you're playing a game of chess, all the other pieces may be there, but if the king is not there, the game is over. So, like that, without this knowledge, whatever knowledge you may be having is incomplete. So, here Krishna glorifies the knowledge he is about to reveal. First of all, before revealing the knowledge, Krishna is trying to highlight to Arjuna the importance of the knowledge which he is going to give him. Because all along Krishna has been giving knowledge to Arjuna, but progressively he is giving him more confidential, most confidential knowledge. So, who is qualified to receive this knowledge? In other words, actually this knowledge is openly available to everyone. Just like the internet waves are all around us, radio waves are all around us. But all of us, unless we have this equipment, we cannot receive this. So similarly, this knowledge is available to everyone, but one who has to be non-envious to know or realize Krishna. Because the author of Bhagavad Gita is Krishna himself. Bhagavad Gita glorifies Lord Krishna. Bhagavad Gita glorifies devotion to Krishna. If one is envious in the sense he does not want to accept Krishna as the authority or does not want to accept devotion as the highest, then it's difficult to know about Krishna or realize Krishna. Knowing is one thing and realizing is Vijnana. So Bhakti is the king of all knowledge. Why? Because the Lord is supreme. So anything rendered in connection with him is the highest service, and service is the nature of every living entity. So without service, no living entity can exist. But if that service is dedicated to the highest, just like you have so many zeros, but unless the one is there in front, they do not have value. So this is the most confidential in the sense that it's the most beneficial to us. And there is a particular way in which we can attain this knowledge. Just like if you want to get some knowledge, you go to a university, you admit yourself in a certain way and approach the course in a certain way. And the most important thing is it is joyfully performed, susukam. Why it is joyfully performed? Because you have always Lord Krishna to guide you when you take to devotion personally. Just like Arjuna was guided by Lord Krishna. So, because Krishna is joyful, anything done in relation with Krishna is also going to be joyful. And what about the faithless? Those who do not have faith in this, that Krishna is the Supreme Lord or whether this knowledge is the highest, they cannot attain Krishna. They cannot attain the goal of life. Now, Krishna also talks about Aishwarya Jnana. Aishwarya Jnana means some people may not accept Krishna immediately as the Supreme. So they are attracted by the opulences of Krishna. Just like if you don't have a personal relationship with someone, you first get attracted to his qualities or attributes. So therefore Krishna talks about how he is present in this world and how one can realize God through this indirect means. So Krishna says he pervades and maintains the entire material world by his energies. Just like the sun is there, it is maintaining the entire universe by its heat and light. Similarly, God says that he pervades and maintains the entire material by his energies. He has unlimited energies by which he is able to perform unlimited activities, and yet he is not in everything. In other words, whatever may go wrong in that system, you cannot attribute it to the Lord. It is because of the misuse of the living entity's freedom that things may seem to go wrong, but he is not affected by what is happening in this world, although he has created this world and is maintaining it. And in the material world, is created and destroyed periodically. Why this creation and destruction has to happen? Why can't it be just created and left just like that and let it go on its own? Because that is what the living entities want. Just like a child is there, he plays with something, after some time he wants something else. So our desires are constantly changing. In order to accommodate our desires, Krishna has to create and destroy. How does he do it? By his energies. He doesn't have to involve himself. His energies do accomplish everything for him. And by his will. Will means he has already written down how these laws of nature will work. And exactly they work according to his will. But all this work cannot bind him. In other words, these works are carried out by the three modes of material nature, but he is not bound by the three modes of material nature. Just like a prison is there, and the prison executes all the punishments or whatever to the prisoners, but that is as per the directions of the government. So Krishna is the supreme director. So there's nothing which can go wrong under Krishna's supervision. Although from our perspective, it may see that something is right and wrong. Now, Krishna also talks about the different types of worshippers of Lord Krishna. As we said, worship means using our body, mind, intelligence, and senses. So different people, even the atheist is indirectly worshipping God. And but Krishna first gives a warning as to some of who are foolish in the sense they consider Krishna an ordinary human being. Just like if you think that the Prime Minister is also an ordinary citizen, then your respect for him comes down. And that is ignorance, your ignorance. So Krishna says that the fools deride me when I descend in the human form, because they think that he has also assumed a body like theirs. Whereas the Mahatmas, who are the Mahatmas, they are also living entities, but they are Ananya Bhaktas. Ananya Bhaktas means they do not deviate their attention to anything other than bhakti. And they worship Krishna constantly with devotion. They are fully convinced that by worshipping Krishna, they will attain the highest perfection. And there are three kinds of jnanis who worship Krishna. One is worshipping Krishna in his universal form, Visurupa Upasana, which means he sees that God is in control of everything in the universe. So they appreciate this feature of the Lord. And that's what Krishna shows to Arjuna in the 11th chapter. Krishna is all-pervading, ultimate shelter and cause of all causes. Just like the sun is there, the sun, light and heat is all-pervading. It is the ultimate shelter and it is the cause of all that is happening in this material world. Now, the next level of worshippers are the demigods. They are known as Pratikopasana. Upasana means worship. Pratika means against the norm. It is a wrong way, it is said, of worshipping Krishna. Just like someone is there and you worship his assistant. So, but the assistant has been maintained by the original person. So these demigods are assisting the Lord because of their devotion to God. So they cannot replace God. They can be by God by definition is someone who there is no equal or greater than him. So obviously anyone other than God has lesser powers. And so those who worship these demigods instead of Lord Krishna, by piety, they go to heaven. Heaven means they are desiring enjoyment in this material world. But unfortunately, even the demigods do not have a permanent position on their own planets. So they have to come back to earth, because earth is the place where you can really do dharma. Depending on what dharma you do, either you go to heavenly planets or you go to hellish planets. But dharma bhumi or punya bhumi is only the earth, Bhuloka. So once they exhaust all their punya karmas, even the demigods have to reappear in this earth only. And one's destination depends on one's worship. So if you worship the demigods, you go to the demigods. If you worship Lord Krishna, you attain Krishna's planet. If you worship the ghosts and spirits, you go to those species. So like that, Krishna already explained in the previous chapter. So therefore, one should better worship Krishna and attain the highest destination. So thereafter, Krishna glorifies Krishna Bhakti. Why? Because it is very simple. Susukam. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram Idamuttamam Pratyakshavagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartumabhyam. So why it is simple? Because Krishna is simple. Although he is the greatest, he can become the simplest. So Krishna makes bhakti very easy. Krishna accepts anything offered with the devotion. So Krishna has everything. So he is not expecting anything from us. Whereas the demigods, they're expecting, just like the tax collectors are there. If you don't pay the tax, they cannot take care of the welfare of the citizens. Whereas God is not like that. He has everything and he's always giving only. He's not taking anything from anyone. So at the most, he is expecting only our devotion. And he says that do everything as an offering to Krishna. Offering means, yes, you acknowledge that Krishna loves you and that you want to reciprocate with him and thus be freed from bondage. Because when you try to enjoy something which Krishna has provided separately, independently of God, you become bound up. But if you offer it back to Krishna, then it causes your liberation. Now, Krishna is equal to all. Krishna is equal because all living entities are dependent on him. He is equal to everyone, but he is especially inclined to devotee. If someone is expressing love and devotion to Krishna, he takes special care of them, because that's what Krishna says, "Ye yatamam prapatyante." I surrender, I reciprocate as to surrender unto me. The more we express our devotion to him, the more he reciprocates, and that is not partiality. He forgives and purifies imperfect. Now, all devotees may not be perfect. There are some imperfections, but Krishna helps him by overlooking his shortcomings and helps him to progress further and further. Now, what about people of sinful birth? Why sinful birth? It is said because knowingly or unknowingly we are committing sins only. Because the world is designed such a way that mostly, by supposing you're walking or talking or eating or doing any activity, knowingly or unknowingly you're killing. Even for our sustenance, we are eating food by killing some plants. So invariably, we take birth in the human different species of life, and uh, but whatever be our birth in whichever species of life, or we can attain Krishna. That is not a disqualification. Where you are, the present circumstances are not a disqualification for performing bhakti. And what to speak of qualified people? If you do suitable practice, then you are more qualified to worship Krishna directly. Now, in the previous chapter, Lord Krishna mentioned that a pure devotee, who is a pure devotee, he doesn't desire anything other than service to Krishna. Supposing you are serving in the best company, they take care of all your basic necessities. They provide you transport, they provide you housing, they provide you all allowances. So similarly, if you are a devotee of Krishna, he says that he will take care of all your necessities. And so therefore, solely fixed on performing Ananya Bhakti. Just like if you love your parents, the parents know what you need, and time to time they are providing all the necessities. So then one can surpass the paths of light and darkness. In the previous chapter, Krishna talked about how it is very important the time at which you leave your body. Depending on that, either you go out of this material world or you take birth again in this material world, because you are depending on other living entities for your progress. The soul progress depends on superior living entities. But if you take to devotion, Krishna personally takes charge of your past, present, and future. And so that is a kind of an introduction to this chapter. So we see progressively Krishna has been giving knowledge to Arjuna. Second chapter, for example, it's known as also confidential knowledge, because he talked about the difference between the soul and body. And then the seventh chapter is known as also confidential knowledge, because he talked about his energies and his relationship with the material world, how he is all pervasive, and what is the difference between demigod and Krishna worship, and impersonalists and devotees understanding of Krishna. So in chapter 3, he talked about Karma Yoga and elaborated that in 5th chapter, after talking about transcendental knowledge in the 4th chapter. And Krishna has described Bhakti Yoga in chapter 7 and elaborated in chapter 9. So 8th chapter is known as more confidential knowledge, and 9th chapter is known as most confidential knowledge, because it's the highest knowledge is revealed in this chapter, and is again summarized in the 18th chapter. So Krishna, first of all, glorifies the knowledge he is about to reveal, because when he does that, our attention is more towards what he is going to say, and he wants Arjuna to particularly pay attention to what he is going to tell him. So Krishna explained that non-envious, Ananya, and Anasuya. Anasuya means non-envious. So the very reason that we are in this material world is we are envious of each other, and especially we are envious of God. Enviousness means we don't appreciate the good qualities in others. We always try to find fault in others because we see the faults in ourselves and we look for similar faults in others. And therefore, we fail to realize that each of us can benefit from each other. If someone has something which we don't have, and we look to him, and he naturally looks to the good qualities in you, and this way there's a healthy exchange between one another. But when we become envious, that builds up a wall between each of us, and therefore we are not receptive to the good in others. So ultimately, this leads to enviousness of Krishna, where we reject him as God, we reject him as our uh, well-wisher, and but those who are non-envious and have faith. hmm, What is faith? Faith means that if I serve Krishna, if I do devotion to Krishna, then I attain the all perfections, whatever perfections are possible. As we see in the last verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Sanjaya concludes by saying that Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanudhara, Yatra Shri Vijayo Bhutva, Nitir Matir Mama. So he gives these blessings by saying that wherever there is Krishna and Arjuna, there is morality, victory, and all opulences. So what the real qualification to receive the knowledge of pure bhakti and the realization of vijnana, theoretical and practical, both comes through a non-envious and faithful nature. So that is the first two qualifications which Arjuna was already having. And idam tu te guhyatamam, the knowledge of bhakti and realization of Krishna by non-enviousness. So at least theoretically, if one accepts Krishna as the Supreme Lord and gives a submissive oral reception to his instructions, then idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshami anasuyave. Anasuyave means you are never envious of me. There was never a time what Arjuna was envious of Krishna because he is an eternal associate of Krishna. In our case, sometimes we are envious of Krishna. Why I should worship Krishna? Why I should understand Bhagavad Gita? All these Anasuya means you are never envious of me. Prabhakshami means I shall speak to you. Guhyatamam means most confidential. In other words, is the most beneficial. Supposing you are very dear to someone, he will reveal something which is most useful to us. Because if he tells it to everyone, they may not pay much, give much importance or pay attention to what one is saying. Idam means this. Te. Jnanam vijnana sahitam. Knowledge of pure bhakti. What is that? Bhakti means hearing about Krishna, chanting his glories, remembering and serving him, etc. There are 9 types of devotional service, starting with hearing and chanting, which both of us are doing. That is knowledge of pure bhakti. And then vijnana, direct realization. So bhakti is such that when you perform it, you can, just like if you are eating, you are hungry, or you are eating some food, automatically 3 benefits come. One is that your hunger goes away, you feel satisfied, and you also feel nourished. Similarly, when you are doing bhakti, you can get the benefit immediately. Supposing you take a very deadly poison, immediately it shows its effect. So likewise, if you do bhakti, you can see the benefit immediately. Yajnatva mokshase abut. Ashubha. Ashubha means miseries. Mokshase means relieved. Yajnatva means knowing which. So my dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall speak to you this most confidential knowledge of pure bhakti, hearing about Krishna, chanting his glories, remembering and serving him, that culminates in direct realization of me. So you can directly realize Krishna at every step of bhakti, knowing which you shall be relieved of all miseries. What is the cause for all our miseries? A forgetfulness of Krishna. Just like if you are away from sunlight, everything around you seems dark. But once you are, so similarly, if you have knowledge of Krishna, you can understand his workings of his energies or Maya. So here Krishna is talking about Anasuya way. Anasuya means non-envious. So Arjuna is not envious. In other words, he has all respect for Krishna. And he is not envious, selfish or hostile. And doesn't see any faults in Krishna. Thus he can understand Krishna. Envious and selfish people cannot understand Krishna or the knowledge of his devotional service. So in other words, if you don't cultivate knowledge of Krishna, naturally you become envious. Just like a snake is there, it is said to be the most envious creature on earth. Why? Because it looks at everyone as its enemy. The moment it sees anyone, it thinks they are come to harm me and I'll bite him. Even if someone is feeding milk to the snake, it only poison increases and it will do more harm to that person. So our envious mentality is that we don't accept the authority of Krishna and therefore we don't cultivate knowledge about Krishna or devotion or the devotees. They are selfish in the sense they want to enjoy everything for themselves. They don't want to share their gratitude to God. They cannot understand Krishna or the knowledge of his devotional service. Because Krishna Sambandha, Bhakti Abhideya, and Prema Prayojana. These are the essence of all scriptures. They talk about what is our relationship with God, other living entities, material nature, and also talk about how we have to interact with God, how to interact with other living entities, how to interact with material nature. And then how do we develop love of God, love for other living entities, and appreciate material nature? What are the 8 characteristics of knowledge of pure bhakti? What will we get by doing this Ananya Bhakti? First characteristic is Raja Vidya. There are different types of knowledge. Some knowledge is knowledge about this phenomenal world, which means changing world. Some things are always changing. And then there is noumenal knowledge, which is permanent. It doesn't change. It's not affected by anything. So among this, there's a Raja Vidya, king of all education, essence of all philosophies. As I said, when the king is there, everything is taken care of. So if we have this knowledge, every other knowledge is useful to us. But without this knowledge, even if you have all the other knowledge, it is not very useful. Just like, and then Rajaguhyam, it is the most secret, king of all secrets. Why it is secret? Because just like you have some very valuable food item is there, it is very nutritious. But unless you eat it, you cannot benefit from it. No matter how much I tell you about its nutritional value, unless you're going to eat it, you're not going to benefit. Similarly, bhakti is something which I may talk about it and you may hear about it, but unless you perform bhakti and under the guidance of the spiritual master, we don't see its benefit. Therefore, it's the most secret. And why it is secret? It's talking about the eternal activities of the soul. It actually tells us what are we supposed to do, what we can do, and how we should do. All this knowledge is revealed through this chapter. Then Pavitram, Idam, purest of all. The soul by nature is pure, but it is contaminated by the 3 modes of material nature and therefore acquires material mind, material intelligence, false ego, and material senses and different perception of the sense objects and the material elements. So this knowledge will purify. How does purification happen? By hearing. Just like ultrasounds are used to clean some vessels, we have the cleaners. It's the washing machines like that. Similarly, for utensils also you have ultrasonic use. The sound can purify. The sound is the subtlest of element. It can purify all the other gross elements like earth, water, fire, air. So this sound, knowledge is revealed through sound. It is purifying and one of all material contaminations. The material contamination begins with our mind, intelligence, and ego. And Uttamam, it's transcendental to darkness of ignorance of this word. What is Tama means? Ignorance. Ignorance means to forget our relationship with Krishna and even forget that we are the spirit soul and that we are superior to material nature. And but this knowledge is transcendental, it takes us above this ignorance. Pratyakshavgamam means gives direct perception of the self by realization or dharmyam, perfection of religion. So what is religion? Religion means dharma. Dharma means what is our original nature. And our original nature is to be serving God and engaging in devotional service. So by doing this knowledge, we guides us to do practical devotion. After hearing this, because at the end, the last verse of this chapter, it tells Manmana Bhav Madbhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. Krishna is giving practical advice. Manmana, always remember me. Bhav Madbhakto, become my devotee. Madhyaji, worship me. Mam Namaskuru, offer obeisance to me. So this way, it gives direct experience of the self. We can immediately, when we see our connection with God, immediately we can understand who we are. And this comes through realization. It is not theoretical. Susukam, easily and kartum, susukam kartum. Sukam means joyful. Susukam means very easy and joyfully performed. Because so we're talking about the 8 characteristics of the knowledge of pure bhakti. One is Raja Vidya, it's the king of all education. Why? Because it is the essence of all philosophies. Philosophy means it is something to do with the mind. The mind is the greatest block obstacle sometimes. So unless you have this knowledge, you cannot transcend the mind and use your intelligence. And it is the king of all secrets. As I said, it is realized only through practice. Then we talked about purifying, because Krishna is purifying, is transcendental to the three modes. This knowledge purifies, just like sound is able to purify. The knowledge about God is also purifying. And it is Uttamam, it is because it is transcendental to the three modes represented by goodness, passion, and ignorance. And then it is Pratyaksha means it gives direct experience. Why? Because the soul becomes activated. Till we perform devotion, the soul is inactive. And when the soul is engaged in devotional service, it all its natural senses, mind, intelligence, they function. And therefore, it is able to understand everything perfectly. And it is dharmya, means the original nature of the living entity. And it is easily and joyfully performed because God is reciprocating with us when we take to devotion. And abhyaya means inexhaustible. So Ashraddha means not faithful. Shraddha means those. So what is the dharma syasya? Parantapa. The process of devotion. Dharma means devotional service. Parantapa means Arjuna, who gives chastises the enemy. Aprapya nivartanti. Aprapya means cannot attain me. And they remain. They remain in the path of Mrityu Samsara Vartmani. Samsara means birth and death, and Vartmani means repeated. So those who have no faith in Krishna, envious of Krishna, they cannot attain the Lord, and they remain in the path of repeated birth and death in this material world. So real faith is the complete conviction that simply by serving the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, one can achieve all perfection, because Krishna is all perfect, his devotion is all perfect, and devotion makes us also perfect. Such faith is created by association of devotees. So when we associate devotees who are following this process and achieving perfection, our conviction Krishna speaks about his Himalayan powers, Aishwarya, by which he sustains this material world. Knowing this can stimulate devotion in him. How can we get motivated to do devotion? Is by realizing the presence of Krishna, that is known as Aishwarya Jnana. Aishwarya means opulences. Actually, Krishna's greatest Aishwarya is love for us, is a loving mood. Just like if a person is loving us, even if he's a very rich, famous, beautiful person, we will not hesitate to approach him. So Krishna is in this world. He is the maintainer of the material world through his energies. Maya tatamidam sarvam. Maya means I. Tatam means idam sarvam. I pervade this entire universe. In other words, he is present in everything. He is conscious about everything. Jagat abhyakta murtina. Jagat means this universe. Abhyakta means unmanifested form. In an unmanifested form, invisible to me. How he is present in everything is not visible to us. Just like none of us can see the wireless, this Wi-Fi. Matstani sarva bhutani. Bhutani means all living entities. Matstani means all living entities are in me. In other words, their existence is dependent on me. Just like we are dependent on the sun. Na chaham teshva avastitah, but I am not in them. Avastitah means situated in them or dependent on them. And I am aloof and detached, which means whatever is affecting the living entities will not affect him. Krishna is present everywhere by his personal representation, the diffusion of his different energies. How is it possible for one God to be present everywhere? Just like the sun is in one place, but its heat and light is pervaded everywhere. As the super soul of Paramatma, Antaryami of the universe, which is Krishna's expansion. Krishna controls and supports the universe by entering within it. So ultimately, consciousness is the controlling power. Just like the soul, actually, by its consciousness, it's able to manipulate this material energy. In fact, even strictly speaking, the soul is not even within the body. But similarly, the Lord is also situated in his abode at the same time because his consciousness is all pervading. He is aware of everything and maintaining everything. Just like the owner of a company is aware of all the things happening in this industry and is able to maintain it. Although though everything is situated in Krishna, they are not situated in him, since he is completely aloof and independent of everything. That is the position of Krishna. Yet Krishna is not in everything. In other words, the imperfection found in the living entities or material nature is not going to affect him. Behold my mystic opulence. How is it possible? So that's why it says mystic opulence. Yogam Aishwaryam. Everything that is created doesn't rest in him. Krishna is aloof. Although I maintain everything, Bhuta Bhrit, I am not a part of this creation. Na Bhutastha. For myself is the very source of creation. Bhuta Bhavanaha. So Krishna's Yoga Maishwaryam, inconceivable mystery power. Krishna said that everything is resting in him and he is the maintainer, sustainer and shelter of the whole universe. Krishna says that Krishna is not, but actually he is. How does he say that I am in everything and everything is not in me? His inconceivable energies will maintain the universe while he stays aloof. For instance, the planets are floating in space and this space is the Supreme Lord's energy. But he is different from space. Ultimately, the continued existence and functioning of all moving and non-moving entity depends on Krishna's will. Krishna. So although everything is depending on him, he doesn't depend on it. An example is just as the wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky. All created beings rest in me. So the sky means ether. No? In ether, you can see the wind can go very far distances. But no matter how far it goes, it's still confined to the space. It doesn't go beyond ether because ether is subtler than air. This material world is created, maintained for some time, and is destroyed. So that because of the influence of the three modes of material nature, the nature is such that it is sometimes manifest, remains for some time, and becomes unmanifest. Because the living entity's desires are constantly changing. And to accommodate those desires, this material nature functions in this particular way. So, but anything is by Krishna's will and his energies. The creation and destruction of material world is by Krishna's energy. The periodic creation and destruction. So this is very controlled by time also, which is another energy of the Lord. At the time of destruction, at the end of Brahma's life, all beings enter into my energy, composed of the three modes. And at the beginning of another creation, by my potency, I create them again. So these bodies are produced by the three modes of material nature, and they are under the control of time, and that is under the will of Krishna. Under my will, with my energy, the whole cosmic order is manifested again and again. Visrujami Puna Puna, and destroyed at the end. So, although Krishna creates, maintains, destroys this material world through his energies, all this work doesn't bind him. Because ultimately, this is meant for the living entities' desires. It is not as Krishna doesn't want it. Krishna is happy in the spiritual world with the liberated souls there who are rendering him devotional service. But because the living entities in the material world desire one type of enjoyment, and that is possible only if this material world is created, maintained, and annihilated. So he is not directly responsible for any good or evil that happens in this world. So ultimately, we are responsible for so-called good and so-called evil. All this work cannot bind him. In other words, whatever imperfections we may find in this material world or the living entities cannot bind the Lord. For Dhananjaya, I am most neutral, udasinavar, and detached, asaktam, because only then he can help us. Just like the judge has to be neutral, then only he can make a decision on the case. And is unattached. In other words, he doesn't take sides from all these material activities. He gives us full freedom. If we realize our roles properly, then we can live in this world. But if we misuse our free will, then we suffer. Bondage arises from desire and attachment to action and results. So, what is the trouble in this world? Desire and attachment. So, what is the problem with the desire? If the desire is based on ignorance, then that is harmful to us. And that causes unnecessary attachment to the wrong things. We have to have desires, we have to have attachment. But if the desire and attachment are misplaced, then it is detrimental, because all of Krishna's desire automatically fulfilled. He need not act and has no bondage, because Krishna's energies are in his control. The moment he desires something, it happens. Whereas in our case, we are in the control of the energies, so we don't have much freedom except for doing devotional service, which is our original nature. How is Krishna the supreme director? Mayadhyakshena Prakriti. Adhyaksha means my direction, and Prakriti means this material nature. Suyate sa characharam. Chara acharam means moving and non-moving. Suyate means producing. This moving means all the living entities. Non-moving means the stationary, like hill, mountains, and all these things. They are they're integrated together, and that's why we see activity around us. Hetu nanena kaunte. Hetu means cause. Kaunteya means son of Kaunteya, under its rule. Jagat Viparivartate. Viparivartate means created and annihilated. Jagat means this universe. Mayadhyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam Hetunanena Kaunteya Jagat Viparivartate. Now, how does he do it? Does Krishna have to personally come? No, he has his incarnation. The Supreme Lord Krishna has unlimited incarnations, avatars, of which one category is called Purusha avatars. So Purusha avatars means the Mahavishnu, Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, and Chirodaka Sai Vishnu, who manifest this material universe progressively and who are involved in the creation of this material world. The first Purusha called Mahavishnu or Karanaka Sai Vishnu lies within the causal ocean, Karana ocean it's called. So just like we have ocean, and from the ocean we get so many products out of it. Similarly, this causal ocean also produces the material ingredients required for maintaining these universes. And by his breathing, these universes come into existence. Just like a living person, when he breathes only, he can do something. If breathing stops, even though the body is there, it cannot function. So when the Lord breathes, all these universes become activated. By his glance, he injects the living entities into the material universe, just as a father impregnates a mother. Normally, a father impregnates the mother in a physical process. But here, Krishna, God, he can inject just by his will. Into each universe, the Lord again enters as Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, the second Purusha. He still further manages the Chirodaka Sai Vishnu, the third Purusha, and enters into everything, even into the minute atom. Even the atom are being maintained by the Vishnu. So Vishnu maintains this universe at different levels. First, he maintains the universes, and then he maintains the living entities within the universes. And ultimately, he is the superintendent in the sense that he is supervising. All the living entities are born under the Lord's glance in the universe. They take birth in different forms and species according to their own past desires. So what is the Lord doing? He is aware of the desires of all entities, and he accommodates the living entities in this world. And so the Lord is not directly attached to this creation. In other words, Krishna does not involve creation. He has Purushavaras, incarnations, who take care of this role. Being the superintendent, he is efficient cause, nimitta, and prakriti is the material cause. It's something called direct cause, indirect cause. And so being the doer and being neutral are not contradictory for the Lord, because he rules by proximity only. So the Lord is very close as well as very far. He is close in the sense that he is aware of everything that we are doing. He is far in the sense that he does not get directly involved. Though Krishna is the source of three Purushas who create and maintain this material world, still when Krishna descends as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki into this world, some people misunderstand him to be an ordinary human being, or just some people think that Krishna is an expansion of Vishnu. But we are coming from Vishnu, but Krishna is not coming from Vishnu. This is a very important point which many do not know. So that's what Krishna is clarifying to Arjuna in this state. Now there are different types of worshippers of Lord Krishna because they do not know about Krishna, because they are envious of Krishna to different degrees. All living entities do not worship Krishna. So what do they do then? First, he is talking about the fools or impersonalists who think that God is not a person, and they consider Krishna an ordinary human being. They think that anyone can become God, or God is also like one among us. Avajananti ma mudaha. Muda means fool. Avajananti means they do not know me. Manushim tanum ashritam. Tanum means body. Manusham means human. Asrita means I have descended. Just like we take bodies, they think God also assumes different bodies. Param bhavam ajananto. They do not know my transcendental nature. Param bhavam means transcendental nature. No. Mama bhuta maheshwaram. They do not know that Supreme Lord is the proprietor of all that is. He is the proprietor of all living entities and the material nature. So what do? What is their fate? Mogasha, Mogarmano. Mogasha means they have desires, hoping against hope. Asha means hopes, but Moha means baffled. Their hopes, they cause trouble for them. Baffled in their hopes for attaining the Lord's abode or Salukya Mukti, because they hope against hope to become liberated. Moga Karmano, they're doing activities, but they're getting frustrated. Baffled in their fruitive activities and results of attaining heaven or Swarga. So different, they are frustrated in many different ways. Either they are frustrated in attaining liberation, frustrated in enjoying in this world. Moga Jnana Vichetasaha. Whatever knowledge they acquire, that is also illusory. Not attain the result considering knowledge which is liberation. Neither they attain liberation, neither they attain heavenly planets, neither they are happy in this world. Vichetasaha, they are deluded by Maya and lost their discrimination power. The discrimination power means to know our relationship with Krishna. Why they have lost it? Because they reject Krishna, they reject the process of devotion. And Raktasim Asurim Chaiva. Rakshasi means demoniac. Asuri means demoniac. Rakshasi means atheistic. They are attracted by demoniac and atheistic Rakshasim Asurim Chaiva. Prakritim Mohinim Sritaha, having taken shelter of the illusory material energy. There are two types of energy. One is the illusory material energy and another the spiritual energy. And the living in shelter of the spiritual energy, he gets liberated. He takes shelter of the illusory energy, he gets bound and more in this material world. But on the contrary, Mahatmas and Bhaktas worship Krishna constantly with devotion. So Mahatmanastu Mam Partha, they are also living entities, but they are Mahatma. Devim Prakritam Ashritaha. So why they are Mahatma? Those who are not deluded, the great souls are under the protection of the divine spiritual nature. They are not under the control of the inferior material nature. How is it possible? Because they Bhajanti Ananya Manaso. They do devotional service without distractions. Process of devotion and unflinching devotion. Jnatva Bhutadi Vyayam. Avyayam means Jnatva means knowing. Bhutahadim Abhyayam. That my human body is the cause of everything and inexhaustible, being fully spiritual. They are aware of Krishna's body. Krishna also said, Janma Karma Chame Divyam Yevom Yoveti Tatvadaha Tektva Deham Janma Naiti Mameti Sojana in the 4th chapter. To realize that Krishna's body is not like our body and that he is the cause of everything and inexhaustible in the sense that he has unlimited energies. Sadatam Kirtayanto Mam Yatantascha Dridavrata Namasyantascha Mam Nitya Yukta Upaste. Sadatam Kirtayan, always chanting my glories, because they have realized the greatness of God. They are always talking it so that they don't forget it and they want to benefit others. Yatantascha Dridavrata, endeavoring with great determination, because they are fully convinced about the greatness of Krishna and the greatness of devotion. They are very determined. And Namasyantascha Mam Bhaktya. Namasya means bowing down before me. They're always surrendering to Krishna. Any problem comes, immediately they surrender to Krishna and look for direction, just like Arjuna was doing, with great devotion. At the same time, they are not bowing down to Krishna for some ulterior motive. They want to serve Krishna better and better. They want to improve their devotion. In that sense, they are bowing down to Krishna. Nitya Yukta Upasate. Nitya Yukta means Nitya means perpetually. Yukta means uh, connected, and Upasate means worship. These great souls perpetually worship me. Krishna will explain more about the pure devotees, Ananya Bhakta, and pure devotion service in the later on in this chapter. Now, apart from the pure devotees, there are three kinds of jnanis who also worship Krishna by cultivating jnana yajna. So, ekatvena, ahangropasana. Some people think that I and God are one. They worship themselves, saying that God is also within me. They worship me in oneness, thinking themselves as God. And pritatvena, pratikopasana. Others, they worship me in diverse, in many forms as the demigods. Whoever they see, they say, okay, he is also God. Started out, they think, oh, he is God. So supposing you have not seen the Prime Minister and see any person and you think he is the Prime Minister, that is not intelligence. So Ekatva means some people think that they themselves are God, or they think there are many gods, or Vishwato Mukham. They accept the Vishwarupa as the ultimate. They worship me in the universal form. That is, they think that God is present everywhere in all living entities. That aspect they worship, but they don't realize that God is ultimately a person. Although he is present everywhere, still is an individual. Now, worshipping Krishna in his universal form is known as Vishwarupa Upasana. Now, at the same time, Krishna is also present in this material world in many forms. So, what are they? Krishna is the various elements of all sacrifices. In whatever activity we do, we utilize things and he is present in them. Kratu means rituals mentioned in the Shruti scriptures, Yajna, Swada, Aushadam, medicines, mantra, chanting, Ayam, ghee, Agni, fire, Hutam. Because all that is used to perform sacrifice. Sacrifice means you do something with a higher purpose or attaining something higher. So in that he is facilitating us. We are able to achieve so many things in life. That is because Lord facilitates that. Now, Pitaham Asya, Krishna is all pervading, ultimate shelter and cause of all causes. How that is explained? Pitaham Asya Jagata, the father of the whole universe. In other words, he is the well-wisher of the entire universe. Mata Dhata Pitamaha. Mata means mother, Dhata means maintainer, Pitamaha means grandsire, father of the father. Whomever we may consider maintaining us, he is the maintainer of all maintainers. And Vedyam Pavitram Omkara. I am the object of Vedyam means object of knowledge. What is to be known? Pavitra means purifier. He can purify the most contaminating things. And how? Through syllable, in the form of syllable Om, sound vibration. Rig Sama Yajur Evacha, Rig Veda, Sama and Yajur Vedas. They have different aspects of knowledge for us to maintain ourselves. गतिर्भर्ता प्रभु साक्षी निवासम शरणम सुहृद प्रभव प्रलयस्थानम निदानम बीजमव्ययम तपाम्यहम अहम वर्षम निगृह्णामि उत्सृजामि च अमृतं चैव मृत्युश्च सदसच्चाहम Arjuna. It's a very important verse. That is Gatir Bharta. Gati means I am the goal. Bharta means I am the sustainer. Prabhu means master. Sakshi means witness. Nivasa means abode. Sharanam means shelter. And Suhrit means the dearest friend. Somewhat a repetition of well-wisher. Prabhava means he is the creation. Pralaya means destruction. Sthanam means maintenance. And Nidhanam means resting place. Bijam means seed. Abhyayam means indestructible cause. Then Tapami means heat. Aham, tapam yaham, aham varsham. I cause rain. Heat and rain, both are required. Nigrinnami utsrujami cha. Nigrinnami means I withhold. Utsrujami means I send forth what? Rain. Because without rains, you cannot produce grains. Without grains, you cannot eat food. Without eating food, you cannot reproduce. And without reproducing, you cannot perform sacrifice. Without sacrifice, again, you cannot produce rain. So that is the cycle. Amritam, immortality. Cha, Iva. Mrityuscha, I am also death. Liberation as those who they are following the process, he liberates them, and those who are not following the process, he causes death for repeated death. Tad asat chaham Arjuna. I am both spirit and matter. Asat means matter, Sat means spirit, chaham Arjuna, and the both subtle and the gross. Sorry, I'm taking a little more time because of the delay caused by the interruption. I'll take another 5 minutes. Now, what about the demigod worshippers? They are known as Pratikopasana. Upasana means worship. Pratika means the opposite. So why do they worship demigods? Because they attain heaven by piety. The notes of the three Vedas, drinking the soma juice. What a soma juice means, it prolongs the life. And so that they can perform sacrifices, and by the sacrifices, they want to please the demigods and attain the planets of the demigods. They become purified of sins. But this purification is also temporary. Just like a diseased person, he gets cured and again becomes diseased. So because the desire is not pure, they try to fulfill the desire, and again desires come, and again they try to fulfill, and this way they get implicated. So these people worship me indirectly through sacrifices and the praying to enter heaven, attaining piety, and they enter the heaven and enjoy celestial delights. The problem is this demigod have to work hard to go there, and having gone there, you have to again come back to this earth. So that is not into, that's why it says coming back to earth by enjoying the heavenly sense and pleasures. The results of the pious acts get exhausted, and they result in this mortal agam. Chine punye martya lokam vishanti. Just like supposing a very rich person, you expend that money to go to some place, and then you are exhausted your money, then you have to come back to earn that money. Thus, such pleasure seekers who follow Vedic rites achieve only repeated birth and death. So, in contrast to the demigod worship, the pure devotees of Krishna attain infallible protection directly from Krishna. Because Krishna is unlimited, his planet is unlimited, his devotion is unlimited, and his devotees are unlimited. So, he gives us infallible protection and which is not obtained by pious acts. Pious means is different from devotion. Piety means we have some ulterior motives. We do some activities for our own self. Devotion means we do it for Krishna, and then Krishna does for us. Krishna's complete protection for an Ananya Bhakta. But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on me, desiring association, to them I supply what they lack and I preserve what they have. Thus, I personally take the responsibility to carry Vahami, the burden of their maintenance, their spiritual and material welfare. So, very, very important words. So here Ananyas means they have no other desire other than pleasing Lord. Chintayantomam, they're always meditating on the Lord. Yejana Paryu, they worship me. And what does the Lord do in reciprocation? They are Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam. They're always engaged in devotion. Yoga Kshemam Vaham. He provides what is necessary for them to come to devotion, and he protects what is required for them to maintain their devotion. That nobody can guarantee. Even the demigods cannot give assurance in any form. Because Yoga Kshemam refers to devotees' approach towards Krishna. Kshema refers to Krishna's merciful protection. So even though there are shortcomings in us, Lord helps us. Whereas in the case of demigods, they may sometimes become very angry and they cause harm to us also. That's why we have so many planetary influences. These planets are governed by the demigods, and they cause a lot of harmful effects on us. Whereas Krishna helps the devotee to achieve Krishna consciousness by yoga, and when he comes fully Krishna conscious, he protects him from falling down in a miserable condition. Krishna ensures that we continue devotion. In this way, we remain protected. So on the contrary, ye panya devata bhakta yajante shraddhayanvita tepi mam eva kaunteya yajanti avidhi purvakam. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way. Because they don't know that whatever benefits they are getting from the demigods is also being supplied by Krishna. So the analogy is given just like if you water the root of the tree, the entire tree gets nourished. Or you feed food to the stomach, the entire body gets nourished. Alternatively, if you try to water the branches and leaves, or you give food to the other parts of the body, it will not satisfy. So similarly, if you worship Krishna, then all the demigods are also Sattvenatas Chavantite. I am the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifice and all the giver of results through the demigods. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true dimension are not situated in devotion and they are frustrated in their attempts, they fall away from the uh, yoga process. So different types of worship, different destination. Yanti deva vrata devan, pitrun yanti vrata, bhutani yanti bhuteja, madhya yanti madhyajinopima. Those who worship demigods go to demigod plants, those who worship ancestors goes to ancestors. Those who worship ghosts will take birth among ghosts, those who worship me will come to me. So this is why it's very important to take devotion. So what is the simplicity of now glorifying Krishna Bhakti? In conclusion, Krishna accepts anything offered with devotion. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prayachi tadaham bhakti upahritam ashnami prayatatmana. Patram means leaf, pushpam means flower, phalam means fruit, toyam means water. Bhakti prayachiti. If an unmotivated devotee offers me with a love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, which is very easily available, we don't need much endeavor. And Tadaham Bhakti Upahradam Ashnami, he accepts that loving offering from that genuine devotee in pure consciousness. So there are many instances, like for example, Vidhya offered him something and he accepted. So the love is the only qualification to serve Krishna. Krishna is eager for our love because he has everything. He doesn't expect anything from us except for our love. And that love is expressed through this performance of bhakti. Now, Yat karoshi yadashnasi yajjoshi dadasi yat tapassisi kaunteya tat purusho matvarkaranam. So how Krishna tells us how we can do practical devotional service. For those who cannot do pure bhakti, they Krishna is giving some practical ways. So you may say, I cannot do pure bhakti. So what you can do? Yat karoshi, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in sacrifice, give away. This every one of us are doing. We are doing something. We are accepting something, we are giving it, someone is sacrificing something. But what the austerities we are doing, just do that as an offering to me. When you do those things, some result will come. At least partly you offer the result, the mission of the Lord and help it to do devotion. And at the same time, Ananya Bhakti. It's for a person who Ananya Bhakti, Krishna is giving some concession whereby he can still be the result of this way of acting will be freed from bondage. Gradually you will come to the level of pure devotion. So where we are able to and not anything for our gratification. So now Krishna says he is equally to all. He gives everyone the opportunity to do devotion. But if someone is doing devotion, he takes special care of him. Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshosti na priya yo bhajanti tumam bhaktya mayi te teshu chapyaham. I am equally disposed to all living beings. I envy no one, but nor am I partial to anyone. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend in me, and I am also a friend to him. He takes special interest in the devotee. So that shows the reciprocal other processes. The demigods may not reciprocate with you. They may be partial to different devotees. But God is the only person, Krishna is the only person who can deal with everyone. Now, what happens if someone is not so perfect in his devotion? Krishna excuses and purifies an imperfect devotee. He constantly helps the devotee reach perfection and become pure. Apichetsu duracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasito sa chipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat chantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanihi namaya bhakta pranashye. Krishna gives a very important benediction. Even if one commits the most abominable action, even if you take devotion and you chance engaged in devotion, I consider him saint devotee. He's giving assurance that he will eventually attain perfection. He is properly fixed in his determination. He quickly becomes righteous, devoid of all contamination, and attains lasting peace. So what is lasting peace means? When we act against our nature, we are not peaceful. But when we take to devotion, gradually we become purified, we become perfect, and that way we are at peace. Declare it boldly that my devotee Krishna wants Arjuna to that the promise of devotee. Devotee makes a promise, then Krishna is bound to fulfill, just like he had to fulfill the vow of Bhishma, who wanted to make Krishna himself fight, although Krishna said he will not fight. So, then in conclusion, Krishna says, Mahi Parthavya Pashchitya, Yeshu Papayonaya, Sri Sata Shuddha Stepi Yantam Parangatim. Those who take shelter on me, though they be of lower or sinful. So, whatever be our past life, due to which we are struggling now, Krishna may be born in a woman means you're always dependent on others. Or merchants means you're exploiting others. Or to serve a master. Everyone can attain the supreme destiny. It doesn't matter where you are situated right now. Due to past is not so important. Take to devotion, and Krishna is reciprocating. So, Kim Punar Brahmana. So, what to think about the qualified people? If you're already engaged in devotion, the people who are not in devotion, they may have to struggle a little bit. If you are already in devotion, Kim Punar Brahmana Punya Bhakta Rajashayastata Anityam Asukam Lokam Imam Prapya Vachaswamam. How much more this is so the pious Brahmanas, the devotees, and the saintly kings, therefore having come to this world in loving service. Now, Krishna says that whether you are not doing devotion or already in devotion, you have everything by devotion. So, in conclusion, this very important says it's the essence of Bhagavad Gita. It's an essence because Krishna again repeats it in the 18th chapter. What is that? Krishna directly. Bhavamat Bhakto. Bhavamat means become a devotee. In other words, follow instructions. Vidhya, worship me, your body, mind, and intelligence. Means to always accept my authority, that take shelter of me. Mam eveshyasi yuktvevam. All you surely come to me, having absorbed Atmanam Matparayana, yourself completely in me and taking my shelter. So this bhakti process is the most confidential. Rajavidya, Ajagusham, Pavitram Idamuttamam, Pratyakshavagam Dharmam, Susukam Kartumavya. So this is the conclusion of this 9th chapter. Any comments or questions? I again apologize for the questions.
Yes. So the first question today is from Jyoti. Her question is, what does that mean?
That means truth. This is very detailed explanation given in the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Absolute truth means Satchit, Ananda, and Vigraha. So because in the 17th chapter, Krishna talks about the divisions of faith. People have different types of faith according to the 3 modes of material nature, and they adopt their own processes. Sometimes it's also against the scriptures. So therefore, Krishna says that anything you do, whatever be your faith, if it is not on the absolute truth, you will be forced to give up your faith. So Om Tat Sat means, Krishna says, so Satchit, Ananda, and Vigraha.
Okay, so the second question is from Lalit Aswani. Does everything happen with God's will? If yes, why we say that God is not responsible for what is happening around us?
Yeah. So God's will, because He has designed it in such a way, but ultimately it is for our benefit only. But we don't see that. Just like a child doesn't like to go to school, but that is the will of the parents, that they know that if he goes through this, he will benefit. So ultimately, Krishna's will is beneficial to us. But it may appear that it's not beneficial because we have very limited understanding. What is the second part?
The second part is, if yes, why we say that God is not responsible for what is happening around us?
So, Karmanya Vadakarasya Mafaleshu Kadachana, Krishna also says. So we are doing activities, sometimes they are good and sometimes wrong. So he is not responsible for us doing good or bad. He's only showing us the way. If we follow, we do the right thing. If we don't follow, we do the wrong thing. So we cannot blame God for that. Just like the powerhouse is supplying electricity. We may use it or misuse it, that is up to us. Similarly, God is giving us freedom to choose whether to do devotion or not to do devotion. So in that sense, he is not responsible. At the same time, if you do devotion, Krishna says, I reciprocate with you.
The next question is from Malini Shankar. You said even a sinful person can attain Lord Krishna if he worships him. Does it mean the person's past sinful karmas get nullified or less intensified by worshipping the Lord? The theory of karma does not apply 100% for him.
Yeah, it is said that just like a germ, this seeds are there. When you put the seeds in the soil, they germinate. But if you fry the seeds, then they will not germinate. So like that, there's Kuta, Bija, Aprarabdha and Prarabdha. These are the four stages in which the effects of sin manifest. Kuta means unmanifest form of the seed. Bija means manifest form of the seed. Aprarabdha means which you are not yet suffering the consequences of your past action. Prarabdha means currently you are suffering. But devotion is such that it can burn up all these four stages of the sin, depending on the level intensity of your devotion. But nevertheless, devotion does remove the effects of sin to such an extent that it will not hinder our devotion. So when you take to devotion, there may be some residual sins, effects of sin, but they cannot obstruct your devotion. To that extent, it will remove the sin. But depending on how well you perform your bhakti, to that extent, it can remove the sin, because the root cause of sin is the desire. So as long as the desire is there, the effects of sin continue to act on us. Just like when you're in jail, they want to see whether you learned your mistake, then they will release you. Similarly, once the ignorance goes, the effects of sin will not affect us anymore. So this ignorance is removed through the bhakti process.
Jyoti is asking, while taking lessons to understand about Bhagavad Gita, somehow, if by chance death knocks on our doors and our progress remains after the soul leaves our body, where our soul's destiny would be unknown, will we be able to continue it from where we left behind?
Actually, soul is always in knowledge. He knows where he is going. Maybe we don't know where that soul has gone. But that soul who is going next destination, he knows very well where he is going. So this devotion also will carry with him, because God is there as Paramatma in our heart. If you don't do devotion, he will also give you remembrance of what other things you did. If you do devotion, he can also give you remembrance of your devotion. The devotion is an eternal asset. It continues with the living entity, whether it's in the material world or the spiritual world. There are many things you cannot carry to the spiritual world, all the material assets, but devotion you can carry there also. So, but the soul is always conscious. But the body is unconscious. When we see a person is dying, it's only the body which is becoming unconscious. The soul is still aware. That's why there are people at the near-death experience, where in the coma also, they come back out of the coma and they're able to see exactly what happened. Not only within the body around them, but even far off places, they're able to witness. So which means the soul is conscious about where it is, why it is going. But currently that consciousness is subdued by the mind or the body. Yeah. Have I answered the question?
Yes.
Next question.
Okay, next question is Khushbu Goyal is asking, apart from listening, reading, and chanting, what more can be done in order to serve Lord Krishna?
Yeah, as we said, there are 9 types of devotional service. That is, first is Shravanam, hearing. And then is Kirtanam, what you heard, you have to repeat. Then comes Smaranam, remembrance. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Vandanam. Vandanam is offering prayers. Like the Kunti offered prayers, Dhruva offered prayers, Gajendra offered prayers. So we don't know how to offer prayers. So when we read the scriptures, we know what is Vandanam, Vandanam, Pujanam, Archanam. Archanam means offering worship, deity worship. Dasya means servitude, like Hanuman did servant. Sakyam means friendship, like Arjuna. Atmanivedanam, like Bali Maharaj. But all these are exemplified by different types of devotees. Or Ambarisha did all these 9 types of devotion. But even if you cannot do all these 9 types, at least Shravanam, Kirtanam is very important. At least Shravanam is the most important, hearing, which we are doing also. If you do this hearing, and especially in Kali Yuga, these other processes are a little difficult. But Shravanam is the easiest. And once you, along with Shravanam, if you do Kirtanam, then gradually the other types of devotion will be possible. And in any case, there are 64 items of devotion mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion book is there, where you can engage body, mind, and words in practical devotional service.
Shlokas in this chapter, Yat Karoshi Adeshnasi and Manmana Bhumat. So those two are answering this question. What more can be done? You can offer prasadam. Whatever you eat, you should offer and eat.
So eating doesn't mean only the food we eat. We are consuming so many things. We are consuming the current. We are consuming so many things we are using. So at that time, you should remember God. Oh God, you have given us this, and therefore I am consuming this. Yat Karoshi, you may be doing so many things in your life. Then you remember Krishna. Oh God, I have to do this. Kindly help me. Or this is not as I turned out what I expected. Yat Karoshi, Yadashnasi, Yajjuhoshi. Whatever, you are always losing something. That time you remember Krishna. Oh Krishna, I'm sacrificing this for you. Yes.
Okay, so the next question is from Poonam Poturi. Why to create and why to destroy according to Krishna?
Just like a person is performing a drama. In a drama, first the stage is not set up. Then you set up the stage, and then you enact, and then you wind up the stage. So like that, this is a material world is a learning for the soul. So in the process of learning, something has to be created, maintained, and destroyed. That is just like you go and play a game on the ground. uh, First on the ground, nobody is there. Then everything is set up, and then you go play, and after the game is over, you come out of it. So like that, this is a learning experience till we attain perfection. With this creation, maintenance, and destruction is required. But in the spiritual world, there is no question of creation, maintenance, and destruction. Because we have come out of that spiritual world and we are in this material world, only when things are temporary, just like you write an exam, it is for 3 hours. You don't write an exam forever. huh? Because that short thing, or you do a course for a few months. So like that, in this material world, everything's are temporary. And through these temporary things, we learn some eternal principles. And then once we become qualified for that, then we go to the permanent world where there's no creation, maintenance, destruction.
So the next question is from Pallavi Dani. How can we see Krishna's presence everywhere and in every situation?
So that's what Prahlada was doing. He was able to see Krishna everywhere because he had knowledge about Krishna. huh? Just like the intelligent doctor is there, if you show him the X-ray or your body report, medical report, because he has the knowledge, he can understand what is happening in your body. Similarly, one who has knowledge about Krishna, such as the knowledge given in Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures, then he can understand the world around him very clearly. It's a science. Just like you, if a machine fails, but if you go to the mechanic, he doesn't see the problem. He knows the solution immediately. So like that, what is a problem for one is not a problem for one who is in knowledge. So the devotee is able to see everything in connection with Krishna, and therefore he's not disturbed. That answers the question.
Now, Jafarul Issa Begum is asking, people from different religions worship demigod, but how to reach and merge with Lord Krishna?
That's why this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, again, even in the third chapter, he talked about demigod worship. And here he is talking about why to worship Krishna. Because all the demigods are dependent on Krishna, that we will see in the 11th chapter also. Krishna is showing his universal form, that's why even the 8th chapter was talking about uh, Adi Bhutam. Adi Devam. Adi Devam is the controller of all controllers. And there are many scriptures which tell how there are many pastimes which demonstrate how Krishna is maintaining all the demigods. So with that knowledge, we can eventually come to worshiping Krishna with that realization. Just like you are going to a BTech, MTech, and PhD, you're getting a higher and higher knowledge. So as you get more knowledge about Krishna, then we can respect the demigods. You need not worship demigods, but you can respect demigods.
The next question is from Prateek Patel. If anybody also devoted towards Mahadev Shankar, then?
Yeah. So Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. If you are devoted to Shambhu, he's also one of the Sampradaya Acharyas. Brahma, Rudra, Kumara, and Sri Sampradayas are there. So if you worship them as a devotee, then they will show us the path of devotion. But if you worship them for material benefits, then they take a different form. They will keep you bound up in this material world. So that's why the attitude in which you worship, even the demigods also, they can help you, they can at least show you the way towards devotion.
Okay, so the
So
last.
actually, when we worship Krishna, we are more aligned to our original nature. Even the demigods are not aligned to themselves, their original nature. But when we become a devotee of Krishna, we get closest to our original nature. And that's why we can be very peaceful. That's why even the demigods are not peaceful. Even Brahma is not in anxiety. Even Shiva sometimes he gives boons to the demons and they try to harm him. So, but Krishna is always, the devotee of Krishna is aligned himself to Krishna, so there's no anxiety or hankering. Yes.
And there have been instances, even in the modern world, where we are aware that somebody who very sincerely prays to Lord Shiva with the intention of spiritual growth, Lord Shiva only directs them to pray to Lord Krishna. That we have ourselves seen. It has happened.
Even if you go to the Vrindavan or all the holy places, there are Shiva Kshetras are there. Because Shiva is also one form of Vishnu. Hmm. So, but if you have that knowledge and you worship them, then it's fine. But if you in ignorance you are worshipping someone, then it can be harmful to you.
Okay, so the last question so far is from Jyoti. What if people do not follow Ekadashi? Is it necessary to follow fasting for all important functions? And how does it help us emotionally and physically?
As we saw, every day is governed by one planet. Monday is governed by moon planet. Tuesday, Mangalwar, Budhwar, and Guruvar, and Shukravar, and Shanivar, and Ravivar, Sunday. So all the days are governed by one particular planet. And this Ekadasi is governed by the Ekadasi devotee of the Lord. So on Ekadasi, whatever you do, devotion, that is amplified. At the same time, if you do some sinful activity on Ekadasi, it also gets amplified. So the best in Kali Yuga especially, the sin personified, Papa Purusha, he resides in grains. And therefore, one who consumes grains on Ekadasi, he is as sinful as killing our own parents, mother. So that's why it's very important to follow Ekadasi so that we avoid sin and we can do devotion. And what was the part?
Is it necessary to follow fasting for all important functions?
The fasting actually, it is to make us align ourselves with the soul. Actually, soul doesn't need food. There is one person, Prahlad Jani, he recently passed away. He survived without drinking water or eating anything. Actually, the soul doesn't need that because we are habituated to depend on the body, we need to eat or drink. So by reducing this intake of food and drinking, we can do more devotion. Just like it is said that the moon has an influences our mind, and especially on Ekadasi, if we eat too much solids or liquids, then the moon effect will be more on us, and the mind becomes uh, agitated. So therefore, if you devote our time to hearing and reading about Krishna and to take minimum food to maintain ourselves, even the physically, the body is able to recover better. Just like we take a rest on rest day, similarly the body also requires some rest, and a person is more healthy by observing Ekadasi fasting. If possible, Nisjala Ekadasi, or if not possible, fruits and milk and curd or vegetables. So like the different levels of fasting, but definitely fasting is beneficial. First thing is physically also it is beneficial, mentally also beneficial, intelligence also becomes very sharp, and also spiritually it is beneficial. It gives us more time to devote ourselves for devotion.
Emotionally. Physically, you answer. Emotionally. You answer? All right, so we are done with the questions. So, in terms of okay, so Jyoti is 92. Now, in terms of attendance, I would just like to acknowledge the presence of Pratik Patel, who has come for the first time, and Akash Shah is regular. He has been coming from the beginning. So is Anshu Bhadoria. Arun Kartikeyan has been coming for past 3 weeks. So I'm not going to take all the names. I'm just taking.
So we have appointed some volunteers to reach out to you. It's possible that due to some shortcomings, we are not able to give the full message. In any case, you can see through the notes. Any doubts you have, comments, clarifications, always directly reach to me or through our volunteers. And please keep attending. We are completed half of the course, and there's much more to be offered in the remaining. Especially the next chapter is the also very important chapter. The seed verses of Bhagavad Gita are given in the 10th chapter, 8, 9, 10, 11 verses. So thank you very much. We'll end the session here. Again, apologize for the technical difficulties. I hope you will tolerate it and help us to go forward. Hare Krishna.